Because with League, it's balanced around competitive gameplay. So
I find that frustrating, if I'm honest.
that it is or isn't.
That it is balanced just around pro play.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, you know,
I
they
agree.
take a champion like Aatrox, and just because he doesn't get pro play, they take him out of the game, and then they never bring him back. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Dash Gaming Podcast. My name's Lloyd, of course, and I am with Alan.
Hello.
Sam.
Hiya.
And Ollie this week.
Hi there.
And, you know, we've just been talking today a lot about how gaming had changed over the years, and we kind of got onto the subject of eSports. And, you know, I'm personally a massive fan of eSports, and I know that Alan is as well, in very different genres. I'm all about League, whereas Alan tends to focus on FPSs. Whereas Sam, not really into it.
I think you've got me to watch a couple episodes every now and then. Definitely when the LCS was on, but I don't really watch it regularly.
Yeah, for me, the LCS is the one that I would choose to watch. Well, Worlds I'd watch, not so much the League system itself, but I'm not really into the PUBG sort of things like Alan is, though.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I played a lot of League when it first came out from the beta and stuff like that, and I really enjoyed playing it. And I watch it because I can appreciate the skill level of players in League, but I don't really have like an intense feeling about it. Whereas League, sort of PUBG, there's just something about that game and its setup I just really have got into in a big way. Like I've been getting up and putting all-nighters from, if it was on in Vegas overnight for American time, I'd get up and watch it even though I had to be up the next day. There's just something about that game that I just really love, and I've got into a team and supporting them and throwing my weight behind them. And
This is PUBG.
Yeah, and in much the same way that I do with real life sports teams. I just find it fascinating.
How does the camera work in PUBG? You know, 100 players live in a match.
It's very.
I was wondering that.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of controversy about that. I mean, most of the competitive level stuff are 4 teams of 4 rather than singles or duos, so they're squad games. So that cuts it down by 4 anyway. But the production value and the setup they have is really quite good. So they have a bank of between 5 and 6 ex-pros stroke coaches who are watching in spectator mode, and they have a setup where they're following a couple of teams each, and there's an overall director, and he can choose which of the feeds those sort of 6 people are watching to be the one that is shown live on Twitch or wherever it is you happen to be watching it. So there's a lot of production that goes into something like PUBG. You know, it's not like CS or something where it's actually quite contained. You know, big maps in PUBG, lots of players, and they do a really good job. They take quite different approaches in North America compared to Europe, compared to Korea, for example. But
would you say that's production value from the game developers themselves, or from how they set the games up within the competitive circuit?
That's quite
sorry, that's a
controversial.
Really
It's just PUBG's going through quite a tumultuous time with its competitive scene, and so basically last year was its big year. It's sort of first time that they'd come together with a single set of points that were going to be used globally with a streamlined system, number of games, and so
points?
on.
So
points for kills, points for placement, finishes, etc.
Okay, so for example, whereas when you and I play PUBG and we get knocked out and there's still 20 teams alive, we come 20th. Does it not work like that in?
Yeah, so you get the point system that they came up with was you get 1 point for a kill. And what's quite interesting about that is if you knock the player, that doesn't get you anything. If another team then steals that knock to get the kill, they get the point, not you. So there's quite a lot of third-party fights where you're aiming to pick off people that other teams have knocked, but you get the kill point if you finish them off.
But would you would normally get the point for knocking them?
If you knock them and then kill them instantly. Game. Sorry?
So something you said earlier, which is and sorry to derail you, But
That's all right.
you mentioned how like the PUBG setup in competitive is different, right? So it's a
Yes.
reduced team, like maybe a smaller map. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's quite similar to League of Legends, to go off on a tangent, in that the competitive way of playing the game is completely separate from the way that the game's played normally.
Oh,
Like
Lord,
even
yeah,
just the
it's-
tactics are different. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so different. The early game especially, like, and how safe some of the players can play, but then it varies from region to region in League as well. I like Chinese League because they're so unnecessarily aggressive. You get so many early game kills and such. Whereas if you look at Korean League and American League, which granted are a significantly higher level than Chinese League, but they play so safe and it's boring. But the actual reason that I asked about the camera work is because I get frustrated when I do watch League when they miss something I wish I had seen.
Yeah.
And then they go back and replay it, but I wanted to see it live. But obviously when you've got, you know, even if it is 100 players in squads of 4, it's still 25 different viewpoints at once.
Yeah. Oh, they miss stuff. It has to be that way. There's no way of covering everything, and I think that probably goes for most esports. You know, it's not
Probably
like
most sports as well, in
yeah.
general, outside
Well,
of esports.
yeah.
The problem is most normal sports, especially ball sports, which are far and away probably the most popular. There's one ball, so there's one place where the action tends to take place. So it's much easier. All right, you want different angles of the same thing happening, but all the cameras can be pointing at roughly the same area of where the ball is. In esports, it's not like that. It is
more spread out.
Yeah, it is quite a challenge, I think, production value, and it's something I think PUBG did excellently with in their first real season last year. Although there was quite a lot of variance in people saying NA was better than EU, but that was better than China, but Korea was better than all of them. But I think it's personal opinion as well.
So do you find, so again going back a little bit, so saying how the competitive gameplay is different in its setup to how you or I would play the game, right? So one of the reasons I don't really engage with esports or sports in general as a media to consume, like to watch it, is because for me it's more interesting to play the game, and especially with competitive League, which I have watched a little bit. I haven't watched any competitive PUBG. It being played not in the same way that I would play it means it's probably that much less enticing.
I think
Not,
that's
you know,
mainly
I'm
just
not saying like they're better or a skill level thing. Just it's a different game for them than it is for me. Sorry, Ollie.
it's just mainly the communication and understanding dynamic. At the higher levels of play, there's a much different understanding of how the game works, and it's more objective orientated than sort of solo play, as it were.
Yeah, there are fundamental differences to the mechanics of the game in competitive, and it's something that competitive players and high level players have been saying to Blue. What are they called? Forget now. They call them Blue Hole, but they're not called Blue Hole. the makers, the developers.
Right.
They've been saying for a long time. The settings you use for competitive should be the ones that we use everywhere. They're much better. They lend to better team fights. They lend to better end game scenarios. So the timings of when the circles close and how quick that circle moves, the levels of loot that can be found around the map are two of the real big things that have different settings in comp mode than they do in public servers.
Settings in the game itself, like how the game's set up.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, you were mentioning when we were talking before about Counter-Strike, right? CS.
Yeah.
So when you said settings are different in competitive play, well, CS is a really good example because competitively they deliberately play at a lower resolution, as far as I'm aware, to make it easier to aim, right? To be that much more precise.
Yeah. I think. Yeah.
But that's crazy to me because the changes in CS are client size, and any player could choose to do that if they wanted to. But the idea that PUBG are actively changing spawn rates and how quickly the circles move and such, like going back to Ollie's point of saying that the professional league scene is so different to the scene that you and I see because we're.
I think that's broad spectrum as well. When he was talking about communication, that's
exactly.
every professional team.
Yeah.
But at least they're playing the same game as us. You know, they're playing on the same arena. They're playing the same rules. Whereas it sounds like in PUBG they're playing a different rule set to what you and I could log in and play right now.
Yeah, they definitely are, and I think the very casual person would never notice. I think that's also what it comes down to. You'd probably never notice, but if you've got a few hours in it, you are into it. you would notice, and it's everyone who's a high level or a pro player says the settings are much better in the competitive mode, but they are adamant that how it is in. I tell you what, they did apply it. They applied those settings across all the maps maybe 18 months ago, maybe 2 years ago. They changed the settings of the circle, and because about 6 people complained on Reddit globally, they switched it back within a matter of hours to how it had been.
Did anyone like audibly say we like this change?
Yeah, plenty of people.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't like in a vacuum.
Yeah, but it's just the status quo seems to be what developers sometimes like, because it's less controversial, scared to take a risk, I suppose. But yeah, so it's a quite unique setup, PUBG.
I can't get over that at all. The idea that they're playing a different game to me. It changes so much about being a professional player. Like looking at Siege, the players that are better than me at Siege are better because they aim faster, they aim more accurately, they know the maps better, they communicate better as a team.
I mean,
but PUBG, they're just getting more weapons because they get a better spawn rate. That's crazy.
No, they're definitely the best players. If you change the settings on the public servers to match comp settings or vice versa, they would without doubt be the best players. But within a competitive environment, the settings that they have make for a more streamlined action. Yes.
Yeah,
so the one problem PUBG does have as a spectator sport is that the beginning of the game can be very quiet and dull for the first 5-10 minutes in the looting phase. Increasing the loot increases the chances of having early fights.
So it makes it more exciting to watch.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, it's all about production value, as we said earlier today. But I mean, then it comes down to how do you make it watchable for the average person? How do you make it seem as though it's the same game? It might have like changed spawn rates and everything else, but it is fundamentally the same game, the same basis, just to try and maximize potential with streams.
And it's still fair, right? Because it's not like, one pro player is getting an enhanced spawn rate because they're pro. They're all in the same game. They're all getting this. So they're even against each other.
Yeah.
But following along
it's
from
weird.
that,
sorry, go on.
If you think about a game that we've all watched in League, how would you feel if they started the game with, I don't know, the gold value of 100 CS?
It's interesting you bring that up, because I was going to say it's weird that in PUBG they're deliberately changing the setup of the game to make it more interesting to watch, to attract a viewer base, right? But in League of Legends, in Worlds, for the first 10 minutes of the game, people just watch them farm creeps, not engaging, deliberately trying to avoid skirmishes because they don't want to risk it.
I mean, to be fair, it very much depends about the team composition in that stage. Because if they're scaling
definitely.
comp, then they want to be very safe in the early game, obviously.
And you will play safer anyway if your income is dependent on it. You'll be engaged competitively. You want to do well, but that's their job, and they're not gonna take stupid risks for their job.
No, they're going to try and maximize their potential.
Yeah, exactly. That's what their training's there for.
To win, yeah.
But when you've got a meta
question,
go ahead.
Sorry. To answer your question, I would love it if competitive league started at the mid game. Like if professional players had a mode, doesn't have to be the replacement. It could be a sub 1 where they spawn at level 10 with a set goal, so they can get themselves maybe 3 items, maybe 2. I think that'd be a much more interesting game to watch.
It'd be much shorter as well, though, is the only thing.
Yeah. I mean,
may or may not
one of
be
the
good,
criticisms of the league is the length of the games.
But then again, it also then brings into question, you're not playing the same game as me, are you?
But that's my whole point about PUBG. They're not playing the same game as me.
It just doesn't let you relate to the actual game itself if they suddenly start the game with 3 items. It's as though you're joining halfway through your own game.
Have you not seen me play League? I might as well have 3 items at the start. I'm still diving in as Alistar. I don't care.
But it's not like they've changed the game fundamentally, right? They've skipped ahead to make it interesting.
Well, I think in the case of League, the actual developers are quite conscious of this, and they try and add in more objectives to try and force the skirmishes, which is why a while back they had all the scuttle crab changes, so they'd force jungle skirmishes. They changed the Rift Herald as well, so that it spawns earlier and spawns multiple times.
Well, they're very proactive,
trying
aren't they?
To force the early skirmishes and trying to force the actual viewership. Because I mean, then again, their income depends on the game as well, like we said before.
I think it'd be terrible to be talking about esports without talking about the game that got esports into the regular sort of mind of the public. So outside of the gaming world, we all knew about games a long time ago, but the success of the Fortnite Champion Series was just insane to me. And the
was
idea
that really
that
what brought it into the public view?
Well, that was on mainstream news and everything. The prize value that I think a 16-year-old won it in the end or something. I can't remember the details.
Yeah, he won $1 million or so, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah.
What year was this?
This
year. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, it was back in the summertime.
Sorry, when you like in terms of everyday conversation, public eye.
Yeah, I mean, Fortnite as a whole has done that for the gaming industry in general, but
I thought you meant like having a huge gathering of people and a huge money behind. Because I would argue that StarCraft did that.
Yeah, I was going to say. I would say StarCraft and things like Dota have had huge prize pools that have been in the news for quite a while.
Had
huge prize pools.
But I mean, the difference is with StarCraft and Dota is I know for a fact that my mother, who hates video games, they make her feel sick. She had no idea what was going on in StarCraft and Dota, and even as an avid League fan, she never cared about League. But apart from when I forced her to watch it to make a point back in when Imagine Dragons played in like season 5, whatever it was.
Wait,
but she knew. Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah, seriously. That's how big League got before it, but it wasn't public knowledge. Whereas Fortnite, yeah, all right, it started big, but it's everyone knows Fortnite.
I mean, I think it's a case of that's the cross-platform that they've got on it as well. It's not just limited to sort of PC as League is as well. That sort of helps get it more in the public eye because it's more accessible.
I mean, Fortnite did a lot of very, very clever things to put themselves into the eyes of the mainstream media and just hit it big with kids. I've got 3 kids. My eldest is 15. He'll be 16 this year. So in the past sort of 4 or 5 years, he has been right in the epicenter of Fortnite's target zone of who they want playing their game. And I talk to him about it frequently. I've played it with him a few times. And I'm terrible. I can shoot okay. I can't build for toffee. But the way that they developed the game, the way that they kept evolving it was absolute genius. And that's what got kids on board, and that's what got the media on board. And they did so well out of it. And even to this day, the whole chapter 2, whatever it is they called it after season 10 with the changes, has been brilliant. However, even my son at 15 now has an awareness that their eSports has a lot of limitations, mainly because of the technology. So it is interesting. Ping issues and stuff in Fortnite are particularly bad because the reactions for the building thing, there's been a lot of controversy actually in some of their offline competitions. Obviously, online competitions. Obviously, offline land stuff is not an issue. But that's one thing where the tech isn't actually good enough for the esport, which is usually the wrong way around.
Servers or
okay. Security as well. There was cheaters in the World Series.
Yeah, when there's that much money on the line, you have to be able to have a level of assurance that it's a fair level playing field, and I think they struggled with that in Fortnite for a while, and probably still do.
Is that not just an issue of scale? So when I mean, I appreciate it's big, but when we talked about that they're in the public eye, that was last year, right? So they're still they're still emerging, and if they're only just becoming big, they can't invest in that infrastructure yet. I mean,
and also considering the player base, the size of the player base is absolutely colossal at this point. So they have to continuously invest in infrastructure.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, though, just a random fact that I learned the other day: Fortnite never overtook League in the most watched game on Twitch.
Has League overtaken League though? Because I don't think it's as popular as it used to be.
I'd say that's less to do with the lack of popularity in League and more to do with the diversification of what's being streamed. WoW has always been a big streaming game, and it's been quite consistent, whereas these other games like Fortnite, PUBG, they've kind of come on these massive rolling trends and then disappeared again.
Yeah,
whereas League
they seem to peak with individual streamers, though. It's quite interesting. So people like Ninja, who started out with Fortnite, I believe, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, he had colossal following. Yeah, the colossal following, but I think it's sort of waned somewhat in that area since he's shifted his focus slightly, and obviously
Well,
changed
he didn't shift his
platforms.
focus. He got bought out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
Just for reference, I've just logged on to browse on Twitch to have a look at the top currently being viewed games. Just Chatting is at the top by a few viewers. Minecraft is top, 160,000 viewers.
Top, yeah.
So
League
Minecraft's
is,
an interesting one.
yeah.
I'll chat about that in a bit. You continue,
Yeah.
sorry.
League is just behind, 157,000. Escape from Tarkov is on 100,000, but that's
Really?
just below what the past couple of weeks, probably since halfway through December, and that's something we can maybe talk about later another time, of how Tarkov have capitalized on some hype in the past month or so, in combination with how Twitch mechanics have worked. This dump is blown up. It's huge. All big at the moment. Like Carnage is streaming it, Sackville's streaming it, Vis is streaming it. Loads of big streamers are streaming it. Grand Theft Auto 95,000, and then Fortnite also 95,000. Dota's down at 58, but they're still in the top. What
58,000 or just 58?
Yeah,
I'd believe either one.
58,000. Yeah,
I mean, FIFA. I see FIFA up there quite a lot at the moment as well.
Yeah, that's behind. And they're 58,000.
I think FIFA's always up near the top because they keep bringing out games every single year.
Yeah. But for me, to hear GTA 5 so high in that list is quite surprising, because the other games in that list are games where there is a clear skill cap, where either content creators are incredibly humorous, really great, presences when they stream, like Carnage, for example. But
GTA 5 is a very flexible platform for that kind of stuff. So it's the modding community, I think, that is why that's there. Okay. So it's all like the racing, right? You used to play, I think, GTA 5 quite a lot. You'd always
I play GTA 5 all the time.
You probably still do. But racing is definitely one of the things that gets streamed a lot because they have all the custom maps and things. And GTA is a sandbox game, so it's very accessible for modders.
I suppose in the same way of Minecraft.
Yeah. So Minecraft, I was going to bring up actually. So Fortnite, we're talking about, it's really popular, right? I've played 3 Fortnite games. I think, Lloyd, you were there for 2 of them.
Eventually.
And like before, I didn't really get Fortnite. I thought, oh no, this is me not understanding stuff, getting old. And then I played that game. I thought, wow, this is cool. One, because it's a shooter, I guess that's interesting. But the building mechanics were that was a really cool gimmick, and I think it draws a little bit from Minecraft.
You do have to remember that we played Save the World, which is a very different...
Are you not able to do that in the main game?
Although
this is the main game, according to Wayne.
No, this is the main... Save the World is what it started as, and then it branched out into the Fortnite Battle Royale, which then just soared in popularity, and then they stopped supporting Save the World. And now they are supporting it again, and they've brought in some really interesting things.
Sure.
But Fortnite Battle Royale, the one that's got so famous with all the flossing and all the stuff...
that's the one they play competitive, is it?
Yes. That's the one they play competitive. It's like PUBG, where you've got 100 players, and you can build,
So that I think is a really
USP.
Cool game.
Yeah, because if someone is shooting at you, if you have no cover, or you literally just throw up a wooden wall, but it's so fast. I don't particularly enjoy watching it for any length of time, but when I have tuned in, or I've watched it with my son sometimes, I tell you what, if you ever play the Battle Royale version, just for an hour, just to try and get your fingers around the building and the keys and stuff, and then watch the pro players build. Forget about the shooting; they're average shooters, and most PUBG and CS players would shoot them off the edge of the world. But you combine that building and watch them do it; it's absolutely incredible.
It's the one battle royale that I'll watch on YouTube. Whereas like PUBG and stuff, as much as I prefer it as a game, watching it's very samey. But if you watch highlight reels of Fortnite or clips from Fortnite, people can have like full-on defensible fortresses built in matters of seconds. It is genuinely impressive.
Yeah, it's nuts. I remember watching Myth, who's a TSM player, because I'm a TSM fan in PUBG, and I knew of other TSM players in other games. And my son told me about Myth, and I tuned in and watched him, and my jaw hit the floor. I can barely watch what's happening, let alone contemplate being that fast actually doing it. It's insane.
But you are right.
I'm actually interested in seeing one of these now, because so how does it work? Could you explain? So you can build structures, I get that, because I've played a little bit, but is there a phase where they can't shoot each other, they build their little bases and then they try and invade, or is it you're thrown in and you scramble to build what you can? Okay.
You build on the fly. It's the same as PUBG, where you get a circle. In Fortnite, it's the storm and it's purple. and it slowly closes in, and you have to move into the middle of the map as per all battle royales. So wherever you get into a fight, you need to be ready to build.
Oh, so you don't strategically pick a point to defend? Well, I suppose you could as well, but
only if you're lucky.
It's as lucky as PUBG or similar.
Yeah. But it's easily destroyable by the weapons, and they have other weapon types. They have sort of rocket launchers and things, so you can mass destroy bases to stop just long, drawn-out build battles. Some people like that, some people don't, but it's worth watching, even if you don't watch it again. But just a couple of hours worth of high-level comp Fortnite, just to appreciate how damn quick and good these people are at what they do. Which I think goes for all esports. That's why I watch the ones that I do. It's why I watch football and the NFL and rugby and stuff, because I like seeing people good at what they do it at the highest level. I just find it interesting.
Yeah, I remember.
I like picking up tips from that sort of stuff. I mean, like you obviously brought up the NFL, and I obviously play, but I like watching the NFL just to watch different running routes. So you got receivers taking all sorts of weird and wacky routes, and you've got offensive coordinators across every country, I imagine, watching these, looking for the new route that's going to make the difference. And it's nice to be able to see that route in action and know how to counter it better as a defensive player. And it's the same as when I talk about League, I talk about the Chinese League because they're always flashing aggressively, and that's now how I play Alistar. Everyone knows that I flash forward with Alistar. It's the only way I know how to flash now.
What is this flashing away you speak of?
It's interesting you say that, because the same goes for PUBG, is that the different regions, NA, EU, China, Korea, South America, Australia, they are all known for different play styles, and particularly how aggressive people like China are, and how that works sometimes and doesn't at others. But it's interesting. It's obviously a mentality within gaming as a whole that means that they're known for that within different games even.
Yeah, I find it interesting in, that there's got to be an optimum way to do something. There has to be. And
I think that plays into gaming as an internet medium, right? So we're very quick to innovate. So when patch notes come out for, say, League of Legends, or I imagine PUBG as well,
Ollie
very quickly, Ollie lets us know what's up. I do. Well, actually, no. In fairness, so you're not a professional player.
Nope.
That was a long think. He was like, "Am I professional? What's my day job?"
I peaked at platinum last season. Is all I can say.
Yeah. Well, congratulations.
So not even close.
You're not a professional player, but you do actively read the patch notes, and whenever we play, much I'm sure to your frustration, you tell me what to build.
Yes.
Because you've already read through, and literally the day the patch comes out, there are already suggestions for optimum builds, how to change the way this things. I appreciate that's because it comes out on the, what's it, PBE or?
Yeah, it's normally out on the PBE for 2 days, 2 weeks.
So there's, 2 days? Is that it?
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2 weeks. So within 2 weeks, people have already figured out how to play in the new updated version of the game.
Yeah, so it might be a new champion, it might be new items, it might be so you still want to get sort of evaluations of items and things, and you get to see, are they worth buying, are they not, all this other stuff.
It just astounds me that there's that quick a turnaround.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks for all patch notes, all new champions coming online.
Oh no, not for that. I mean, just for people to pick it up and go, right, this is what will work.
I think that filters down from the pro players, right? There's money at stake, so you have to be quick on the uptake. The pro players and the streamers pick that up quick, or everyone else is going to learn from them. So it's, if you've got a successful game, people are, like you say, they're always going to find the best way as quick as possible, because it gives you an advantage.
But even then, that was what my whole point was, isn't it? There must be an optimum way to play it. There must be the best way to do it. And yet every different region you talk about PUBG, we talk about League, doesn't matter which game it is, but they all have a different play style. And it's interesting. That's why I like League Worlds so much, is because you get that Korean safe style mixing in with the American roaming style, mixed in with the Chinese aggressive style. And it's interesting to see how they interact with each other as play styles.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, you're never going to be able to equilibrate those to find out which is the most efficient, because it's the most efficient for that team because their individual strength or weaknesses. So there probably is on paper a way to work it out. I don't think any team of players would ever be able to fulfill that because they're not those paper people.
Yeah. I mean, it goes back to when you're saying it trickles down from competitive play, right? League is a really interesting example, I think, and PUBG, from the way you've said it, in that PUBG is different competitively in the setup to the plebeians like us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's quite nice, because with League, it's balanced around competitive gameplay. So
I find that frustrating, if I'm honest.
That it is or isn't?
That it is balanced just around pro play.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I
they
agree.
take a champion like Aatrox, and just because he doesn't get pro play, they take him out of the game, and then they never bring him back.
Yeah. But it's like, the game is balanced for a team of 5 people that live in the same house. They, they're very good at cooperating with each other, and they go, right,
Eat
we
together,
have to,
train together, gym together.
Yeah, we have to nerf this champion, because if people are psychically compatible with each other, it could be a bit unbalanced.
Yeah.
And then, the Aatrox players of the world suffer for it.
All those champions with the insanely high skill caps that us standard plebeians will never reach, such as Aatrox standard.
But Rise is a prime example, because Rise, at my level, sitting on
Your
that
level.
sort of high silver, he's never a problem. He's in games sometimes, and sometimes he pops off, and sometimes he's average, but he's never like consistently an issue. But just because pro players know exactly how to use him, he gets reworked every season or so.
Yeah.
That's the hardest for me, as someone who played League a lot for probably 4 or 5 years and then didn't touch it for quite a long time for a variety of reasons. Even now, I'll play with you guys at random every so often, and there'll either be a new champion, I've got no idea, but they've been out for 3 years, and I'm like, I've no idea how this works. Or I'll pick someone like, oh, Rise, I know how to play Rise, or Teemo was the other one I did the other day. Played Teemo, I know how Teemo works. No, I don't. No, totally different.
He no longer plants mushrooms. He is a mushroom that spawns teams.
Yeah, it's annoying.
And then those small Teemos spawn more Teemos.
But moving back, whilst we're on the topic of popular games and stuff, you were going to start talking about... Well, Teemo should be the topic of everything. But you were going to start talking about Minecraft, and the influences it's had, and you can see it through like Ark and Fortnite and stuff. And I know Minecraft wasn't the first to build in a grid, but it definitely is probably the biggest now. I say definitely, probably. It definitely. But you were going to start talking about Minecraft, because I know you did some of your coursework in it as well.
I was going to... I didn't do coursework in it. It was useful in my degree. It had some things. But I think, we were talking about eSports, and I thought Minecraft was an interesting segue into Fortnite and the building thing. We could talk for length about Minecraft, but I think we'd risk going off topic.
Well, it's interesting.
There's no competitive. There was a competitive scene in Minecraft.
I was just about to say exactly that, actually.
What's it called? Spleef, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. So I don't know much about it itself, but I had an interesting conversation a couple of days ago, and we mentioned Escape from Tarkov earlier. I was having a conversation with someone on Twitch about, could you make a competitive scene in Tarkov? And the answer is probably not in the traditional sense of PUBG or League or CS or Quake or whatever. But you could still have a competition where you say, right, new fresh accounts, you've got 24 hours, earn as much money as you can. There are ways and means of bringing in competition. You could do that in Minecraft, build the largest square footed area within a period of time, or the highest, or something.
But there is clear speedrunning categories for Minecraft, and speedrunning is getting bigger. And that always interests me, because obviously Minecraft's such a generated game by seeds anyway, but the idea that there is a speedrun category where you go from spawn with nothing to slaying the Ender Dragon now is just mad to me.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's an open plan game, isn't it? And it's like if you're given an empty space, providing you're all happy to follow rules amongst yourselves, you can come up with a competitive game. And so other games, like for instance, that are completely geared around competitive, like League of Legends, PUBG, etc. These rules that we play by are hard coded into the game. But we're perfectly capable of following rules without physically being unable to break them.
Well, and interestingly enough as well, in the early days of League, I, through absolute randomness, ended up playing a few games with someone who was starting a group to try and make a different way of playing the game. And there was probably 30 or 40 of us who would take turns and randomly play a game. And the rule that we had imposed on ourselves within the mechanic of League was you were only allowed to use the middle lane. And then you were only allowed to buy when you go back. Yeah. And we were basically progenitors of Aram.
Yeah, I was going to say Aram came about because of that.
It did, and I was one of a tiny pie, just random. I didn't really come up with anything specific. I just used to play the games. But, back when those were the rules, but you get people come and they weren't there to help. They cheat. They go in the bushes, in the side lanes and stuff in the jungle. But it was really interesting to see how that developed, and we bring in new rules about what you could and couldn't do.
It's sort of similar to how we got
the new rules that made Aram and such, but when you think about it, the whole of League was a generated game from user content anyway, and that StarCraft was initially a mod anyway.
Yeah. It was God, I can remember. It was Warcraft, wasn't it?
Yes.
Because the idea for a MOBA came from Warcraft.
Yeah.
I think we're all referencing the same video here, but even TFT, right? That came from a MOBA mod as well.
Yep.
Sorry, not a MOBA mod, a Warcraft mod.
Yeah.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, definitely.
Also, just while we're on the topic of Warcraft 3, there's at some point upcoming remaster of Warcraft 3, which I'm very excited about. Just for people to keep an eye out. That's going to be a proper
I could probably talk. I mean, we've already talked for well over half an hour, but I could talk for another half an hour just about remakes and remasters and how I feel about them, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, there we go. There's another topic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll probably watch an episode of Fortnite competitive. I don't expect that I'll make a habit of it. I think it's the same relationship I've got with sports. Hang on, I'm good at some sports, but I just don't watch it, or even the sports that I like, I don't tend to watch them or engage with them.
Yeah. And I think
I'm the same. I can't follow them live. I don't have the time. I don't meet their schedules. I'll catch up with them when I can, whether it's a sport or an esport. It doesn't matter. But I do like catching them occasionally.
Yeah.
Go
on.
No, I was just saying, like when we were chatting earlier. I think the point I sort of very proud of making was that sports and esports, they've got this sort of ongoing contention where are esports actually sports or not? But from what I was saying earlier, from a spectator point of view, they're the same. You're invested in an esport the same way you're invested in a sport.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So as a media to consume, it's they're in the same category.
Yeah, it's functionally different, but to a viewer they're the same.
Yeah, I would argue.
Still people playing your hobby at a level that's far better than you're ever playing getting paid for your hobby.
Yeah. I would argue perhaps that esports are maybe more interesting in that regard because they balance themselves quicker, right? Could you imagine if the uproar it would cause if the football league were like, hey, actually, we're going to change the game format around a little bit because it's not stimulating anymore.
Yeah, we'll make the goals a bit bigger so it's easier to get goals. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah.
And that's the same thing with all esports, I feel, is that they do change and evolve as the games change and evolve. I mean, League's a great example. They keep adding new champions, and pros find new ways to abuse those new champions, and then they nerf and adjust them, and the meta's constantly evolving.
How many champions are in the pool for League now?
Ooh,
over 100. Yeah, over 140. Because they've just released a new champion literally this week as well.
Right. Oh wait, is that the Punchy Man?
It is, yeah.
That's his official name. Yeah, because Afelos, I haven't played as him or against him, but I've heard a lot of bad talk about it on Reddit.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of gripe. They're trying to innovate too much with some of the new champions, I think. They're also bringing them out a bit too quick, in my opinion. But that's
when do they stop? Like, when do they go? This is it. We've filled all the possible niches for champions we need.
I think it might be a case that they end up phasing out old champions or something, if I'm honest.
But that's going to cause uproar. I mean, look at the uproar. I know that I was personally affected by it and I was personally victimised by it. But the uproar over Aatrox is still going on.
In one subreddit.
You're the only member. It's a mod team
Aatrox
of one.
Mains were a thing.
No longer. No one even remembers what old Aatrox looks like.
Wait, have they changed how he looks? Oh yeah, because his sword.
Yeah, and the wings.
Yeah, he used to have a noodle sword. He used to have wings. You know, he used to be able to jump.
Did he have wings? I thought he just had a weird cape.
No, he's still got
No,
wings, but you can only get them by using Control G or something.
Still hear the bitterness in your voice, Lloyd.
No, you push Control G and you get mini wings, and then you have to ult to get your proper wings.
Oh yeah, that's the one.
Great.
But yeah, I mean, I'd say that's kind of what we have to say, really. Esports have really changed gaming as a whole, I'd say, especially over the past 10 years. Like, it's been a bit crazy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just going to stop with gaming as well. I think it's going to force other actual sports to try and evolve a little bit to keep up with the viewership as esports grows. Or at least force them to
Esports
find
is
new
uniquely
ways.
positioned, I feel, because it's again, I don't want to reference different conversations, but esports is an internet-based sport, right? Esport, and because of that, because of the nature of the internet and how quick it is to react to change, it itself is quick to react to change, and it evolves very, very quickly. Like we were talking about fan engagement, right? Think about how a footballer engages with their fans versus how your typical professional esporter, or like, video game person engages with champions, with their fans. Sorry.
Well,
where
some footballers have now started engaging with their fans by playing Fortnite. Like that's how big it's got recently.
Yeah.
But no, they're not engaging with their fans by streaming them playing football. They're doing it through an electronic media.
Yeah.
They're going with the format, right?
Yeah.
A professional footballer might have traditionally a Twitter account, which they would post on, right? Updates and things like that. I guarantee you that's not them posting it. It's probably, if it is them, they have to have their tweets approved. Like it's very controlled, right? It's traditional media where it has to be gatekeepers, right? Whereas, esports, outside of competitions, they have to stream, or they tend to stream anyway because they have to keep their rank up. They have to play so many games or whatever. They have to keep in practice
and make a living if they're not a player that earns big bucks by winning worlds. Yeah.
But then streaming is a very intimate relationship with your viewers, right? You're not going by a script. You're not having some kind of predetermined format. You're just there, and as far as they're concerned, that you're a direct line to them, right?
And it's more accessible for your community and your fans as well. In that, like, I couldn't phone up, I don't know, give me a famous football player, I don't know, David Beckham. I couldn't ring David Beckham and say, "Yo, let's go down to the park and kick a ball."
Before we go on with that,
2020.
David Beckham, right, is the first famous footballer that comes to your mind. Who's the second most famous? Because I guarantee you it's Michael Owen.
No, it was Ryan Giggs.
Bobby Robson or Peter Shilton or something.
Good old Bobby Charlton. But either way, it's not like I can go down to the park and bump into them kicking a ball around, is it? Whereas if I'm, in that skill level, like Siege, for example, I see streamers on Siege quite regularly.
Well, that's because there's so many streamers, I feel. It's...
I mean, like, significant streamers. Like, obviously there's a guy who currently rules the YouTube space of Siege called Marley. And he's made a massive channel for himself, and he's a very highly skilled player, and he has been approached by pro teams, but he's in the same elo rank as me. I've seen people that he's friends with. I've not actually seen him, but like people that he's friends with in my ranked games. And I'd never get that with like American football.
No. I think that's the other reason why we touched on this a bit earlier today, about there's now an emerging relationship and partnership emerging between sports teams and esports. So for about several years now, the Pittsburgh Steelers American football team have got the Pittsburgh Knights, who are now an officially affiliated team of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have got teams in various esports, including PUBG. Last year, possibly summertime, I think FaZe have now got a partnership with Manchester City. And only a few days ago, Wolverhampton Wanderers have got a PUBG team announced, but not in the UK or Europe, in Korea, which is interesting. They're not doing it to engage with even particularly the league that their football team is a part of, but they've now got an esports team in a foreign league, which opens all sorts of questions about management and financial earnings and accountability and all sorts of things. So it's very interesting, complicated market.
100%.
But also the
and as
community
well,
engagement. You'd want your local team. You know, if you're Wolves, let's be honest, they're not small business. Let's not joke about it, but they're not a Premiership team. So you'd think they'd want to engage their local community, who are their primary fan base.
well, it seems like they're doing the opposite, right? So, they're breaking into this video game media, right, for a sports club. Which, let's be real, if we're talking about something like a FA football club, or I don't really know the terminology, but like an established football club, they're very old institutions, right? They don't want to risk changing too much in case they break their magic formula. It's interesting to me that they're not having their main football team go away and play these video games as a way of sort of like group bonding or whatever, and pushing them out as a brand. They're taking on other separate teams in other separate domains, almost as if the club itself. So I think you mentioned Manchester United earlier.
City.
Manchester.
Don't get that
Manchester
wrong.
City.
You'll cause a riot.
I'm so sorry. I apologize. But right, so Man City, right? They have an esports team, and it's not, I think, even located in their hometown, right?
Well, it's Man City don't have an esports team, but they have a partnership and an affiliation with an established esports org.
Right.
So slightly different.
Okay.
Thing.
But then the other one you mentioned, the Steels, or whatever it was. They own the other.
This is brilliant,
team.
Sam.
Yes.
I don't understand sport. I'm sorry, but the point I'm making is that they're moving away from being a singular team for that sport and having one team and that's them, to becoming almost like a brand where they go, we're this brand and we have these teams, and they're almost, it's the Disney effect, right? Where they did one thing, now they're doing 3 other things, and they just gain more of a media empire.
It's basically where esports organizations are coming from, is where other people are going to, or almost.
Yes.
They're sort of all evolving into these multi-functional organizations rather than just this one thing they were previously known for.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons teams, especially, I think what Wolves have done in going to Korea is that as a company, as a brand in this country, a mid-tier club like Wolves, who are looking to earn more money, to be more competitive, the best way they can do that is not by trying to steal fans from other clubs in this country, but entering new markets. And esports is a fantastic stepping stone to getting their brand out into other markets, to then potentially expand into them supporting their football team as well as their esports team. So I think it's a very clever way of getting their brand out there that I think everyone can win from if it's done in the right way.
Yeah. But I mean, then there's the opposite though, where the team itself that everyone grew up with, or came to like them because of an associate that brand with, becomes slowly disenfranchised from what it was originally, right? So it's Man City no longer only do football, and maybe the esports thing picks off so much that that's barely even a part of what they're for, and that could almost feel like a betrayal to the original fans, I guess.
Yeah,
it does make you wonder though. Did clubs like Man City, like these empires, did they already start buying tennis players and hockey teams and that sort of thing, and we just didn't know about it because we don't care about tennis or hockey or golf or other things?
I don't know. They might start doing it though if they don't, because it's the same. If they do this and it's successful, it's the same business model, right?
Yeah, it's effectively just franchising out your organization almost.
Yeah, your reputation.
Yeah, you're staking your own reputation in new fields or new areas, and then you're sort of trying to make it be the best. And
I think we're definitely at a crossroads, because I think normal sports, real life sports, are under no illusion that anything internet related is only going to get bigger and bigger, and there's money to make, and there's revenue to collect, and there's market shares to grab hold of that can help not only support what they're known for now, but like you say, expand and just become known for other things. And I think both esports and sports are in quite a crossroads over the next sort of 10, 20 years as to how they approach that. And it's going to be really interesting to watch and see what goes on.
It could even be that sports don't necessarily merge with them, right? But they learn from the model, because yes, there's opportunity there on the E kind of area, but you have to work in a certain way and be flexible with that.
Yeah, I mean,
it's the reason why startups can be successful in the first place, right? Just talking about companies in general now, because they haven't got as much to lose, and they can afford to be I'm going to say reckless, but creative in the way they approach problems. And they can get themselves in a position where they're now doing it how it should be done in today's world, whereas that's much harder for a more established company to do.
Yeah. I mean, it then comes down to like sort of corporate agility, which is a horrible way to put it. I hate that phrase. But let's not discuss that. It's an entirely separate topic.
No, I think we've come full circle. Well, we went full circle and then we went into a different shape.
Some weird tangent to the left, and
I'll commit to watching a Fortnite game.
Yeah,
maybe.
That's good to know. I think it's just good in general. Like we've spoken about how esports and sports, they are kind of making this crossroads, and it's just great to see that esports is getting such a great position on the global stage.
Yeah, I mean, it's a common household phrase now, esports.
Definitely, and it's making mainstream media. The league finals actually on the BBC, which is just mind blowing for someone who's never seen their hobby represented in the media like that.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see.
Has articles on it all the time.
Okay, but it will be interesting to see.
Newspaper.
The Metro is the #1 newspaper in London, hands down. But it'll be interesting to see, like how Alan says, how they do progress over the next sort of 10, 20 years, and how the two interlink with each other. But I think we'll call it at that point. So that was the Dash Gaming Business E-commerce and Esports podcast.
Yeah, next time we talk finances.
Yeah, next time we'll tell you how to get investors.
Yeah,
and how best to approach Dragon's Den.
Yeah, we'll start up an esports org, and next year
maybe we should buy an esports team.
Absolutely.
That sounds like when drunk mates go to the bar and say, we should buy a bar or something.
If we bought a bar, we wouldn't have to pay for drinks.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Okay.